Welcome to Agoracom Small Cap Best of the Best. This is our weekly show summarizing our picks and news that we've had on our daily show with our our senior market commentator, our chief market commentator, Alan Barry Laboucan. Alan, say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody. It's great to see you all, and we've got a good show today. Some good picks to talk about, so we'll get right to it.
And it's Sunday, July the 20th, just to timestamp this. So, Alan, let's get straight into the big discussion. I'm going to do a screen share here in a second. So let me do this. All right. So the big news for me is, if you can see our list here, is what happened in the market. So we had the tragedy in Ukraine. So there's no getting around that terrible news. But we are in the market, so we'll leave the sentiment part for other people. We don't like to profit or lose or trade based on this stuff, but that is our job. No matter what happens, we have to take into account world macroeconomic factors and how that affects the markets. So here's what I'm really surprised about. You can see my Dow. You can see my Dow chart right here.
Yeah.
You tell me. Here's what I'm really surprised about. This is where on Thursday around 11 o'clock in the morning, we knew that there was a major problem. Let's see. I think that was right here. All right. Right about here. You can see it's at the very peak. And look what happened to the Dow following that. All right. Massive move. Now, a lot of that had to do with the fact that we all realized that Russian pro-rebels most likely knocked that plane out of the sky. That was going to cause potentially huge reverberations on the macro markets. All right. I expressed some concern with that. I went long volatility. I said go long gold, and let's take a look at gold here and what happened to that as well. Loading. So you can see same thing here, 11 o'clock in the morning on Thursday, had this big jump up here. But then something happened that surprised me, and I don't know, maybe I'm doubting myself as to the strength of these, how truly strong these markets are. But look, gold fell right off the table the next day. And look what happened to the Dow the next day also. So we had this low on Thursday at the close, and then look at that look at that move on Friday. So here's my question for you: is this an unstoppable bull market? Because I keep trying to poke holes in it. It's the rally that everybody hates. I've been trading it. Everyone knows I've been trading. I'm not going long anything as far as the big caps go. And I was really surprised by this move. Should I become a perma bull right here? Because I'm thinking, if that, oh, by the way, let's not forget that within an hour, a couple of hours of the Malaysian airlines being shot down, Israel launched a ground offensive into the Gaza Strip. So both of those combined, I said to myself, we're going to have a horrible Friday, a testy weekend, and Monday was going to be probably even worse. And yet everything recovered on Friday. So is this market bulletproof because of QE and low rates?
Well, George, you know, nothing's bulletproof. I'm going to pull up, I've got a chart here of the Dow Jones that I'm going to pull up.
Or as bulletproof as can be. I know nothing is ever bulletproof, but as bulletproof as can be.
Well, just when everybody, you know, that's usually the time when guys like you throw in the towel and say, oh, I'm going to jump on board as well. That's often a time for a change of direction, George. And I'm just going to pull this chart up right now. And what my problem, excuse me, got something caught my throat there, George. What my problem is that this market seems to be totally ignoring can you see my chart there, George?
Yep.
The market seems to be ignoring, for me right now, fundamental valuations. You've got the Dow Jones and the S&P 500. Look at this trend here. And it does look unstoppable, but when it gets up to these levels, George, I get really nervous because now you've got the Dow trading at a very rich valuation relative to what the earnings growth are. You're looking at the Dow and the S&P 500 type companies trading at about 18 times earnings, and yet they're only growing their earnings by about 10% a year. That's not a very attractive PEG ratio. In fact, it's an alarming PEG ratio right now, and I couldn't get bullish on this. Now, as far as those short term,
but devil's advocate, okay? If looking at that chart that you showed us, we've looked at charts like that a lot for small cap companies, and when we see a chart like that, we say this is a beauty. You got to buy this, and the charts don't lie. At the end of the day, this is that chart there was about as beautiful a chart as you can get. It keeps bouncing off support, rises, bounces, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs. It's hard to make the argument, and I'll get off of that as well. It's hard to make the argument that you can't bet on this market anymore. I don't. I gotta tell you, I'm flabbergasted right now. I'm thinking.
I like to go. When I like to go when I think the odds are in things that I think the odds are really in my favor. And right now, I don't think the odds are in your favor of going long. Does that mean that there's not going to be, the market's not going to keep going? At least for this summer, George, you're probably in a safe position to stay fairly bullish in your positions, but I would start to around the end of August into September, start to position myself for some negativity in that market. When the market ignores things, you got to start paying attention to is this getting overly frothy? And what you're talking about there, George, as far as those geopolitical situations, that should scare the market a little bit, but they just ignore it. So you ignore valuations, you ignore these geopolitical situations, and that's a market that makes me really nervous.
I'm not saying ignore it. I'm just saying.
No,
I'm not talking about putting every one of my assets in the market and going long for the next 10 years. I would still be very, very careful.
No, I mean the market is ignoring those things. And
and I'm the market. Because right now I'm the market thinking that, I wasn't ignoring them when they happened. I didn't say buy on Thursday morning. On Thursday at the close, I said go long gold and volatility.
Yeah.
So I'm not ignoring it. But here it is. Man, I don't know. I got to tell you, there's a part of me that says, am I a contrarian right now? Where in fact I'm the canary in the coal mine that says these things are going to turn down because I'm suddenly becoming more buying into it. But that's hard to ignore. That's really hard to ignore.
I think there's a lot of people out there like yourself that are starting to think the same way. That this is just crazy. We got to jump on board. And when
I got to tell you, I'm gonna, I got to wake up Monday morning. I'm gonna take a look at some of the long names of GoPro, the IPO that just came out, TubeMogul that just came out. Alibaba's coming. It's almost like I want to play these big ones here and just go with it for now.
I'd look at Glue Mobile if I was doing that. They've been on a real tear lately. BlackBerry, if I'm going to go long, at least go long something that hasn't had a massive move.
Sure.
Already. But it's getting dangerous here, George, for bulls. Just when everybody thinks that the bulls are in the winning position, that's usually time to get bearish, and that's where I am now. But bear in mind, I've been pretty bearish on valuations for a long time, so I've been wrong on the general trend of big cap stocks for a long time. Fortunately, I picked some good ones that have done really well, which I'm a stock picker, not a index picker, but so I've done all right. But
we haven't missed the boat. Because we've had some great rides and we're trading them, which I still think is smart. But all right, so we'll leave that there. Conversation will continue over the next couple of months and see where we go.
Before we move on, I want to say that gold in the resource sector is the exact opposite. Where everybody's getting overly bullish on equities and the big cap equities, everybody's very bearish on the gold and the mining and the resource-related stocks, and that's the opposite situation. Now, I'm much more comfortable getting bullish about that than I am bearish about the overall market.
Well, you know what you and I have said about gold. I mean, you've been very bullish, and I've said until gold can break out over 1350, 1400, I think it could be sideways for a long time. So I'm not committing dollars there at all, because I think that there's just the market's telling us, that at the end of the day, it's contrarian or not, bearish, and that it's just not translating into real. Whereas Dow, the S&P just keep powering forward. Look, 17,000 on the Dow, just it moved through it. We had this two major macro geopolitical events, drove it down, and then right back up on Friday. I can't explain that, but I think for now, guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go long some names. You watch me on Twitter.
I like your VIX call, George. I think that VIX volatility, then you can make some money even if it goes up, because it can start going up and doing this as it's.
Well, I was up 15% on that on Thursday afternoon, and I gave it all back on Friday.
Yeah.
So I never would have expected that. But let's go to some picks.
Okay.
So we'll leave that conversation. But I'm telling you now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start going long some names like Yahoo, Apple, guys like that. I'm going to start taking some aggressive trading positions in those and give those things a chance to run. So let's go to, here's what I like. All right. So for everybody, here's the pick that I love. You can see this chart that just came up, Alan.
Yep.
All right. This is RUSL. RUSL. This is an ETF, as you can see right up here. It's the Direxion, so it's an ETF. It's a daily Russia bull. So this is bullish. You buy this if you're bullish the Russian market in general, and it's a very aggressive. Look at the volatility. I've actually traded this in the past. I missed some great opportunities. I missed this. I was too aggressive waiting for another 50 cents. I missed that. But here's why I think there's a possibility to make some big money in this. So it made this move up to 22 and had a few, had a bit of a, naturally you got to take profits. That was expected. And then bam, we had this issue with what happened over the last couple of days in the Ukraine, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go to a 5-day here. Let's take a look at that now. So here it is, right? Here is the correction as a result of the sanctions. This is all sanctions here that were announced that day, right? And then this happened right here because Malaysia Airlines went down right here. So sanctions, drop 1, Malaysian Airlines, drop 2, and then here's a bit of recovery here on Friday. I like this pick. It looks like what's going to happen is if the Russians are smart, they're going to, they're probably going to they probably realize right now that things with the rebels in the Ukraine are out of control. They're not going to admit it to anybody, but they got to realize that we just shot down a plane with 300 civilians on it. We have to reconsider our strategy there. So I think what's going to happen is you're going to see them lighten up, and that's going to create some lift back in the Russian market. I think this event's going to turn them back into good boys and should be bullish. So what I would do is I would set this level here, 1630 as a stop loss. All right, this low right here, I'd set that as a stop loss and potentially try and ride this back up here for a couple of bucks. So that's what I'd be buying on Monday. That's my pick here. Assuming nothing changes, it's Sunday, but assuming nothing changes between now and tomorrow morning before the market's open.
You'd have a hard time convincing me on that one, George. I think that, when you get these, wingnut type people in these rebel groups in the Ukraine shooting down planes and stuff like that, I don't think that, that's rational type people. And, even though the Russians may want them to cool down, that not necessarily means they will cool down.
Well, here's what I'm looking at from a technical point of view. Take a look at where it is here. All right, so I just opened up the chart. This is why. It's below its Bollinger Band, so this is below its standard deviations, to the downside, and that to me tells me a lot. That's pretty. That alone, now on its own, it's not enough, right? But the RSIs are pretty weak, right? The stochastic's pretty weak. This here, right here, the MACD histogram looks terrible. So that would almost make the bear case. But the fact of the matter is, it's about as low as it's been in the past. So I think it's
not quite.
Yeah. But yeah, not quite, but pretty much there. So I'd be willing to take a bet on it. It is a bit of a risky bet. This is not one of those slam dunks. I'm going to make that call. You're obviously disagreeing with it. That's obviously, I'm fine with that. But I think there's an opportunity here to make a quick recovery over the next few days, as Russia maybe for a little while cleans up its act. But that's just me. So I'll leave it at that. That's RUSL.
Look at that. It looks a bit like a rolling over type chart. Look at that last 2 days of volume spike there, George, on the downside. That indicates to me that downside might be picking up some momentum.
Well, remember, that's because of the Malaysian Airlines being shot down. This wasn't a sudden surge where people want to get out. That event naturally created a great deal of volatility. So I think that's a bit of a false indicator.
Oh, okay.
We'll see. Yeah, you could totally be right. This is not one of those. That's why I'm setting a stop loss at 1630. But otherwise, I think you can probably make some bucks here on this one, assuming Russia cleans up its act for the foreseeable short term. I'm not talking about forever. They may be back to their antics.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that's me there. So let me close that down, and let me get over to your picks here. Okay, so the first one, and let me do a screen share again. Sorry, because when I'm at home, guys, it takes me, I don't have two screens going. I've only got one. So it just takes just slightly more cumbersome. So you should be seeing the list come up right now. So there's our talk about the Dow. There's our talk about gold. There's RUSL. So MUX, McEwen Mining, no stranger to you. Alan, you've picked this a few times in the past. You've done very, very well with it. Trades on the TSX. Average volume is about 160,000 shares a day, so it does about $500,000 a day in dollar volume. What do you like about McEwen Mining here?
Okay, so McEwen Mining had some news out earlier this week. It was the news on their quarterly report, Q2, 31,000 ounces of gold equivalent. Had some really good numbers in there. That's why I talked about the company on the show. I'm just going to pull up their stock chart now, George. I'll do a screen share and show you what I see in the stock chart. You see my chart now, George?
Not yet. There it is.
Okay. So as you can see here, George, it had a top back in mid-March and just before April. Came down pretty hard. I like that it stayed above this last low here. On this low, I think that's a good sign when they come hard off of those big tops, that they retain some of a good amount of that gain. So we got that happening there, and then it bounced off of that. Since then, it's been kind of going sideways, but it's going sideways with an upwards bias. Mm-hmm. Now you can see the sideways action in the 20, sort of a bit in the 200. And definitely in the, what do I got here? Oh, that's the 200, sorry, in the 50. Now, it looks like it looks to me like this wants to break out to the upside out of this sideways action. I love it when I see sideways action with an upwards bias. What I mean by the upwards bias is look at the lows here, George, and then you get this higher low. You got a slightly higher high. That's what I mean when I think sideways with an upwards bias.
All right, let me take a look at my chart here. Yeah, can't argue. It's not a screaming buy for me, but you've been dead right on McEwen Mining, so you can see I brought up my technicals here. It's got great support. I think it's got great support here in this area because look at those three different moving averages. They're all converging there. You
Yeah,
got the 12. You got the 12-day moving average. You got the 26-day moving average. You got the 20. They're all right there. So it's got some pretty good support here. I think you're pretty safe to make this bet, even if it's not a trade. If you're going long like you like, Alan,
yeah,
I
and
think
even
I think
your
it's really. I think it looks really, really good right here.
look at your Bollinger Bands too, George.
Mm-hmm.
They're tightening up, which is always an indication that you're at an inflection point, and which way do you think it's going to go from there? And based on, I always look at the previous 4 to 6 weeks to give me an idea of what I think is going to happen when they come out of a tightening of the Bollinger Bands there. And so I see as they tighten that there's this short-term upwards bias on the stock. That gives, and then when the fundamentals are good on top of that, it gives me lots of confidence.
So this kind of buy for you is what, a 3-month hold, or is this a trade? For me, it wouldn't be a trade, but it looks good if you want to go, if you want to go 2-3 months on something like this. It's hard to argue against it.
McEwen Mining to me is a good long-term core holding type company.
Yeah.
Rob McEwen wants to grow this company into a very large producer. He's done it before with Goldcorp, and I like his chances with McEwen Mining. He's got his name on this one.
Yeah, it's hard to argue going long on McEwen. It really is one of the best names in gold. The guy has unlimited access to funds, unlimited access to the top people. So it's a great. Let's take a look at the 2-year chart here. So it's suffered its pain. It's suffered its pain, and now you've got this nice move back up, and it has shown, if you go back to middle of 2012, it has shown ability to get up into this mid-4. So you're much closer to the bottom here than you are to the top, and I agree with the sideways action. I like it.
That's a good way to say what I think on gold too. You're much closer to the bottom than you are the top.
Yeah. And I gotta agree with that. I still wouldn't be buying because me, I'm a momentum guy. So Alan, for those of you new to the show, likes the longer term stuff, and I like things from a shorter term. And yeah, he's right about that. If I had to go short or long on gold the next 2 years, I'm long all the way because you're closer to the bottom than you are much closer to the bottom. That's for sure.
You like to see the momentum happening. I like to try to predict the momentum is going to happen.
Yeah, I don't like to wait for it to, because sometimes these like gold, it has been sitting here in this 1270, 1360, 1370 kind of range for a long time, and it's not that kind of tight range. I don't want to sit there with dead money, but once I see the momentum come, I'll jump in.
Well, you know what, George, for you then, I think that a good indicator is anytime it gets close to 1,300, go find some quality gold stocks.
Yep.
Go long. You're going to have a spike. And when it gets up to 1,370 or 1,350, take your profits. And
no, you're not just you're not bullish on just gold, because look at your next stock picks here. Once the graph comes up, your next one is Silvercrest, which again, you've been pretty bullish on in the past. You've picked this pretty well. SPL on the TSX trades an average of 140,000 shares a day. So again, you've got about just over $300,000 in dollar volume average in dollar volume every single day. What do you like about Silvercrest now that's unique?
So Silvercrest, I had them on the show earlier this week, and they had news out that their silver production was 412,000 ounces silver equivalent in Q2. They give you some good details about how that production number is looking. You can find that on the company's website. Here's the stock chart, George, and I like what I see here. You've had, again, here's another one with this high back here. Gets beaten down, but retains some of that from this last lows here. Retains some of that gain. Bounces off that pretty aggressively. Then you've got some profit taking. Got to remember, George, lots of buyers down here are looking at good solid profits up here.
Yeah, that would be me, right? That would be me. I'd be selling.
Exactly. So we got to get through that, And then, now I'm looking at, well, look at again here, you've got converging moving averages. And so what's the prediction? Which way does it go from here? I like that the MACD, I think, can turn up from here and go much higher. Look at how high it got up here back in the last time it had a high. So, yeah, I think there's some good room to move. I think that this one's another one, George, that you can get aggressive whenever gold's around $1,300, you can bet that silver has also been beaten down. So, just the silver and gold stocks, when gold gets around 1,300, is a good play. And the reason that 1,300 number is so important for me, George, it's actually more the range between 12,500 and 1,300, is because that's what it costs on average around the world to produce gold.
Or you're talking about 1,250 to 1,000, not 12,500.
What did I say?
You said 12,500.
Oh, well, maybe that's prescient for the future. I think Rob McEwen and those kind of guys would like that kind of Freudian slip, but yeah, 1,250, not 12,500.
All right. For me, this is a pick'em. I'm not. There are two things here. It's getting a little toppy relative to what it's been able to do recently. I'd like to see a breakout of this. Right, because there's some sideways action here. But on the flip side, a ton of support. Look at all these moving averages in here again. So it closed at 233, but you got the 12-day at 222. You've got the 20-day at 224. You've got the 26-day at 217. So you've got a ton of support. And sooner or later, this is this sideways action is going to break out into something. And given that I think silver still is going to be in play in the fall. I think it's going to be in play at some point. I think you're okay with this. I'm not going to go out and buy it on. I'm not going to go out and buy it on Monday. But I think you've got both support, right? But I think it's getting a little bit. I want to see some conviction here. I want to see a breakout over 240. I'd like to see it hit 245, and then I can go long on it at that point. But I'd wait. I'd be patient right now.
Sure. That's what makes it work, George?
Yep, and for everyone that's new to the show, this is no loving, right? You and I don't sit here and exchange picks beforehand and slap each other in the back. We really put each other to the test.
Yep.
Santa Cruz Silver Mine. Now, this is one that I bought, about a month ago at 90 cents, sold at 96, made a great profit. That's my play right there. So I don't have a position now, but you're picking Santa Cruz. SCZ on the TSX Venture at 94 cents. Does about 120,000 shares a day. So, some decent dollar volume, some decent dollar average there. What are you liking about Santa Cruz? Because I sold it at this 96 because it just couldn't break through. I bought at 90, kept going 96, 93, 95, 92, 97, 94. Finally, 96 said I'm out, and that was 3 weeks ago. And we're still here. So what are you seeing about it that's making you think that this is the time to get into it?
Yeah, George, they had some good news out again earlier this week on their quarterly report. So that's why I picked the stock up during the week. I think right around, somewhere in there. But look at this stock chart. Now this one's your classic sort of bearish trend. Lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, lower lows. This wasn't a lower low, but then you get a lower low here. So this could have been just a short-term noise. Lower lows, lower lows.
Terrible.
Yeah, you got to hate that, right? But this is when I see this kind of action and then I see these bottoming type moves. That's when I get really excited because the whole momentum, everybody's scared on this stock. Everybody's selling it as much as they can. But then then the market says, no, this is too cheap. And at that too cheap point, I like that the volume increased quite nicely to pull the stock back up. So that tells me that there's some new, more confident blood getting into that deal. Then they have this sideways action. We've been seeing some of this sideways action in all three of the stock charts that I've showed. So
and look at my 96, right? Pretty much that's where it's stalled out.
Yep. Yeah, you got it. That's right. But I think we're this one doesn't have a bit of a bullish, until recently it had a bit of a bullish bias as it was going sideways. Then it kind of ran into this, but I would still call this a sideways type market. So which way is it going to go from here? Well, they're in a good part of their season. They're producing. They're making good announcements of increased production. And now I also think you're going to get silver helping them out as well. So that combination, I think, gives me a lot of confidence that as it comes out of the sideways action, it'll be to the upside.
Yeah, looking at your chart, I want to wait. I want to see a breakout over 96 cents, 98. I might even wait for a buck, but right here, I just see it continuing to bounce in between 96 and potentially as low as 84 from looking at your chart. So for me, it wouldn't be a buy right now. I'd be sitting and waiting until either 84, and people have heard me say this before, and you people think I'm crazy, but you either buy it at 84 or you buy it at $1. But in between, you're just kind of that technical no man's land. I've seen this kind of chart, this pattern before, and I don't want to be stuck in it here.
Gotcha.
All right, going back to let me get back to our chart. Let me get back to our graph. And your last one is Klondex Mines, KDX on the TSX. Closed at 209 on Friday. That was 236,000 shares a day on average. So you're talking about a company that's pretty much at $500,000 a day of trading volume. I love that. You know, I like to see liquidity. I'm going to bring up Klondex here. All right, looks like a nice chart again. A lot of sideways action. So what is it, particularly the Klondex, with the sideways action that's got you thinking about it?
So Klondex had some news out earlier this week, and what I liked was the quote from Paul Hewitt, who's the president and CEO, who commented, "As we continue to wrap up our Nevada operations, our team delivered excellent results. Based on our first half operating results, we're on track to meet management's expectations. More importantly, we have a stronger balance sheet as cash and working capital increased at the end of Q2 2014. And then he goes on. The recently announced bought deal financing expected to close on July 31st will provide for development programs and accelerated exploration at Midas and Fire Creek." End quote. So they've got, as you can hear from that quote, George, they've got things running on all cylinders. Production numbers are up. They're starting production. They're ramping up nicely. They're building up cash and working capital. Now they've got a bought deal financing that will add to their cash for their development programs and exploration. On a fundamental sense, they're really doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then you look at the stock chart, and I think that this is a beautiful looking stock chart. You start down here on the lower left side, and you've got you can see my chart, George.
Yep.
You see the stock down here last October trading around what was that, $1.39, and then you come to here, and it's towards the upper right hand side. We've had some good moves in between. From the lows in October, you had a nice run. Gave back some gains to the December lows, which was when we had our contest, and picked a bunch of stocks that performed very well. These guys were on that trend as well. They extended it a little bit longer, and look at the highs that they made. You know, right around 225. Gave back some of those gains. I think that they set their new bottom here, their most recent bottom right about there. And as this is a definite sign of what I call a sideways action with a bullish bias. You see this low here, and you see these lows here. Even on days when they trade spike down, it still closes back up into what I would call the bullish part of the trend. So I'm seeing a lot of things here, George, that tells me that look at this. Look at the 200-day, the 50-day, the 20-day, the 100-day. the 20-day. They're
A
all
lot of
pointing
support.
like
A lot of support. Got to
they
admit,
look
a lot
like
of
they're
support.
pointing like they want to go higher. And I like the company and I like the stock a lot. I'm really
Well,
becoming a big fan of this one.
of the three sideways actions deals, this is the one I think I like. This is the one I think I like the best right now. And let me say, let me take this over
Yeah,
to.
I don't blame you, George, because you're always looking for confirmation, and if anyone's looking for confirmation of a sideways action with a bullish bias, this is it.
Well, look
the
at
last.
this. I mean, I just brought up my chart here. What's it's getting really tight again. You know, the bands are getting really tight. You talk about, and 211 on the top, 196 on the bottom. A ton of support, like we said, the 200 days at $1.80, and you had showed earlier that the 100-day was about $2, and all sorts of action right here. So I would be a buyer. I like this, especially when you tell me the fundamentals. It would have to break below $1.96, so I'd say $1.94 as a stop loss, just in case, because the world is a crazy place.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of liking this one. I'm not a major bull on it. It's not one of those ones where I'm pounding the table saying I got to go out and buy it on Monday. But I like the fact that things are all kind of pointing up here. Here's the stochastics. Here's the RSI. Everything's just kind of pointing up. Everything. Even this dip couldn't really be sustained, so I think this is going to break through. I'm okay with this one, setting $1.95, $1.94 as a stop loss.
There you go. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about something. Let's talk about something you and I were talking about. So we'll get as far as format goes to get some feedback from people. But we are thinking of going to in September, not right now, but going to a bit of a different format, which is doing a live show on Sunday evenings. All right, so doing a live show on Sunday nights rather than Friday, because what we're finding is, people are probably tired on Friday. Friday, they want to get out. It's the end of the day, and not a lot of people have the energy to review these things. So we're thinking maybe Sunday night, and then around 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, 6:30 on the West Coast. Tell us what you think. Send us some email. Send us some feedback on Twitter, whatever you think, and let us know. And if we do that, that's going to be after Labor Day. But that's what we're thinking. Because I got to tell you, even I get tired on Friday afternoon. Sometimes I'm not there. We're trying to wrap up things quickly, and that's led to some shows that haven't happened because of that. Trying to get some last-minute business done on Friday afternoon. So, Sundays just seems like a perfect time to do something like that. And listen, we make these picks because they gear you up for the week after anyway. So Sunday night, you put the kids to bed, the barbecues are done, everything's finished, and then you got a time to really focus in on this stuff. Give us your feedback and let us know what you think.
Yeah, and I like the Sunday night idea too, George. I think that people have sort of got all their rest in. The kids are to bed, getting ready for the week coming up. It's a good time to sort of get your shopping list together. I like the Sundays, and also from my perspective on the show that I handle on a daily basis, which is the news show. We're going to be looking at doing that once a week as in the not too distant future. I'm getting pretty busy on a few endeavors of my own to bring a couple companies public and be part of the management of those companies. And so what I'm looking at doing with the news show is to more consolidate. Let's say we do it on a Wednesday. I'll try to take the best news releases and charts from Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday and have a super news show midweek, and then we'll do the best of the best at the end of the week.
So do Sunday nights, do Wednesdays, but also at the same time maybe fill it in with not maybe, but what we're going to do is start having roundtables. So what we'll do is we'll have you, myself, an analyst or two, and a company or two. So do a five-way kind of roundtable and be very topic specific. Have some silver companies on, for example. Have gold, have tech, have all those kind of themed kind of shows, so we can get even deeper information to people's hands.
Well, and I like that format, George, because the one thing that I've liked, like today's show, for example, on our picks is a perfect example. We don't agree on everything, and I think that rigor of sort of beating each other's picks up it lends to the audience as well. I think that they get a lot more value out of it doing it that way. I just noticed that my partner George has disappeared from the screen there. I'm going to re-invite him to the show, but yeah, I can. If George can't make it back in, I can definitely close off the show. But yeah, so we're looking at some format changes where we're going to, change up the shows a little bit. We're looking at these. My show, the news show, will be 1 day a week. The best of the best will be at the end of the week on Sundays, and we're going to try and throw into the mix some afternoon interview shows or roundtable type discussions where we can get other analysts and some company people in there to give you more perspective. I think that that's what we're all about, is just adding to investors' tools, and I think that these new shows we're working on are going to fit into that very well. So on that note, I'm going to say goodbye for George and myself. Again, do your homework, speak to your financial advisors before making any investment decisions. That's very important. We're just a resource here to give you some ideas. It's your job to go out there and do your homework, find out what's suitable for you, and take it from there. On that note, have a great day, and we will talk to you soon.